Make your own water. That's where things have gotten now, because the President of the United States allegedly set his sights on Canada's fresh water, the biggest untouched supply any nation has ever had. And he didn't want it through some trade deal or friendly partnership. No, one phone call was all it took to shake everything up. According to reports, his Commerce Secretary personally called Canada's Finance Minister and dropped a message so bold that 4 sources confirmed it to the New York Times. He reportedly said the treaties protecting the Great Lakes, the same century-old agreements that decide how both nations share the planet's most priceless resource, were easy to abandon. Imagine that, a US official saying that on a diplomatic call. But it didn't stop there. On the same line of calls, Trump allegedly made it clear he wanted to scrap the Great Lakes agreements completely. Every single convention tied to Lake Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario, treaties that stood strong through 2 world wars, the Cold War, and survived every president since William Howard Taft. He wanted gone. The idea of undoing generations of cooperation over water that sustains millions, that's not just shocking, it's history-breaking. He wanted those treaties gone, and he said all this right after going on camera and calling Canada's fresh water nothing more than a faucet. Can you believe that? And that one comment, it's about to come back and explode in his face. Here's how it all went down. A press conference, a sunny golf course in California. A reporter asked Trump about the wildfires, the drought, and what he planned to do for a state that's literally running out of water. His answer? There's a very large faucet in Canada, U-turn. It takes 1 day and all that water comes right down here to Los Angeles. A faucet. 1 day, straight to LA. Within hours, engineers from across North America were calling it out, because no such system even exists. The Columbia River, which people think he was talking about, doesn't even flow into California. A professor at the University of Calgary even said, he doesn't understand how water works. And that quote spread fast. Then he doubled down, said the same thing again on the Joe Rogan podcast, promising California more water than they could ever use, still pointing north, still talking about that same faucet. And after that, he won the election, and suddenly the talk turned into plans, real ones. Now, here's where it gets wild, because that so-called faucet he kept talking about, wait till you see what it really is. The Great Lakes, 5 massive lakes holding 18% of all the fresh surface water on Earth. That's nearly 1/5 of the planet's supply, the lifeline for over 30 million people. The Great Lakes region isn't just water, it's an empire of its own, with an economy so huge it would rank as the 3rd largest in the world, right behind only the US and China. Lake Superior alone, it holds enough water to flood both North and South America under 10 centimeters of water, 1 lake out of 5. Can you imagine that? Now, head west to the Columbia River. Born high in the mountains of British Columbia, it flows south through Washington and Oregon, feeding life the whole way down. Along that stretch, it powers 31 American dams, fueling 40% of all US hydroelectricity. It keeps $8 billion worth of farmland alive every year and moves 42 million tons of cargo. All that power, all that production, riding on a river that starts in Canada. And when you zoom out, Canada holds more than 2 million lakes. That's 7% of the world's renewable fresh water, controlled by a nation with barely 0.5% of the global population. This isn't just a resource, it's a global advantage, a card no other country can play. And yet Trump brushed it off, calling it plumbing. Plumbing for the single most valuable liquid asset on the planet. But here's where the story flips, and this is the part that changes everything. There's a saying in water law that lays it all out crystal clear. One of the top water law experts in North America, a professor from the University of Idaho, summed it up perfectly. It's better to be upstream with a shovel than downstream with a right. Why? Because if you're upstream, you can stop the water. Let that sink in. And guess who's upstream? Canada. On everything. The Columbia River's headwaters sit in British Columbia. That means Canada controls the storage, Canada manages the flow, and Canada decides exactly how much water reaches those 31 American dams down south. And it doesn't stop there. Look east. Out of the 5 Great Lakes, 4 share borders with Canada, and Quebec holds the power over most of the flow. The St. Lawrence River, the only exit route to the Atlantic Ocean, runs through Canada's hands too. So when Trump went after those treaties, he wasn't just pushing a neighbor, he was picking a fight with the nation holding his tap while standing at the bottom of the hill. Wild, right? And if you're thinking Canada would never actually pull that move, think again. They already flexed that kind of leverage, just not with water. Yet, when Ontario's Premier Doug Ford slapped a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to 3 US states, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York, it sent a loud message. We can turn the power down anytime. Same principle, same control, different resource. But the message couldn't be clearer. Overnight, 1.5 million Americans woke up to higher energy bills, just like that. And then, Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, went on camera and dropped a bombshell. If the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. A sitting Canadian Premier openly threatening to cut power to American homes. And the wildest part, nobody in Washington could stop him. Ontario literally controls the transmission lines that keep the lights on across parts of the US. That was electricity, but water. Water is way bigger. Water powers American hydroelectric dams. It keeps American farmland alive. It fills the taps of over 30 million Americans every single morning. Doug Ford just proved something huge. The playbook works. And now everyone's realizing that water might be the next chapter in this power struggle, but here's the plot twist no one in Washington saw coming. Even if Trump wanted to grab that Great Lakes water, he can't. Not through executive orders, not through backdoor deals, not even with all the muscle of the presidency. Why? Because a Republican president already locked that door shut years ago. In 2008, George W. Bush signed the Great Lakes Compact into federal law, a deal that makes large-scale water diversions out of the Great Lakes Basin illegal, not optional, not symbolic, not a handshake agreement, law. So no matter how badly Trump wants to turn that Canadian faucet, this one's sealed tight. Federal law and 8 US states stand guard over that water. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York all signed on. Red states, blue states, even states that voted for Trump, every one of them depends on that water to keep their farms growing, their factories running, and their families hydrated. So if Trump ever wanted to send Great Lakes water down to the dry Southwest, he'd have to go through his own governors, and those are Republican governors he needs on his side. Then there's the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909, still standing strong after 116 years. It's outlasted 2 world wars, the Cold War, and every US president since Taft. And here's the kicker. George W. Bush, another Republican, was the one who signed the Great Lakes Compact into law. That compact now sits squarely between Trump and the Great Lakes. A Republican president literally built the legal wall blocking a future Republican president. Talk about irony.